Want to welcome everybody to the RQAP-GMP Open Forum. And I'm going to say this is not just a good morning. This is a great morning. This has been something that has undergone a lot of effort to getting us to this point in time. So this is a great morning to be able to share this with everybody who's called in for this, and we're excited to share just updates on where we stand with the RQAP GMP process. So Lydia, next slide, please. So our exam development leads. So who are we? So I'm going to let Ed Armstrong introduce himself. I know a lot of you know him, but even his self-introduction is awesome to hear. So Ed, tell us a little bit about yourself.
I don't know how I got here. I snuck in while nobody was looking, and Lydia doesn't have the heart to kick me out. All kidding aside, for those who know me, Ed Armstrong, I've been part of SQA since 2019, and one of the main things that helped bring me to SQA is, number one, we all have the same scars as quality assurance professionals in life science, but also it was that there was a fresh green field of GMP for SQA, and meeting folks like Steve, and other team members that have or currently hold either the RQAP GCP and the RQAP GLP. I saw the opportunity to really get involved with SQA to help us drive for that GMP. For those of you who know, I've been in the industry for a little over 30 years now, primarily in the space of GMP. And it's a very underserved group out there. And it's really proud to sit here today and thank everybody for all the hard work that went into this test. And I look forward to seeing a whole bunch of names with RQAP GMP next to them in LinkedIn.
Thanks, Ed. And Steve Rogenthien here. I've been with SQA north of 30 years now. And, the graying hair is a testament to the battle scars that, as Ed said, we've all kind of gone through over our respective careers, and it has been an absolute, I'll say, pinch myself morning, because again, as Ed alluded to, this has been the culmination of a lot of efforts that have gotten us to this point in time. And let me just give you just a brief snapshot as to how we got here. In 2017, the SQA board of directors recognized that there was a need to establish an industry home for QA professionals in the GMP space. As the board kind of looked around at other professional societies, there was a very clear path for, in essence, developing a resting place for the GMP QA professionals. So, I mean, just looking at that alone, this has been a decade in the making. And SQA was blessed from the standpoint that a few folks from the board were actively talking really to some members that had this passion as well. And those members were excited in some of the initial efforts, and those individuals started to put together really the initial offerings that, if you go back in time, look at some of the annual meeting content, those individuals were instrumental in laying those first building blocks. And those annual meeting presentations began to grow and build, turned into webinars, to the point now where we also have a trilogy of quality college courses. So really the GMP content within SQA has really grown from that initial seed planting way back in 2017 to the point now where we have GMP content really across the SQA enterprise. And then once we got that in place, we realized if we build it, they will come. And what we started to see is more and more GMP QA professionals coming into the society. And then the questions began to be asked of, hey, SQA has this GLP certification and there's this GCP certification. Has SQA considered an RQA-GMP certification? So those were the obvious next questions that not only were we asking ourselves within the society, but new folks coming into SQA were also asking. So obviously the process started of adding this certification exam. Lydia, next slide. So how did this exam process start? How did it get created? How basically how do we recognize and realize where we sit here in July 2026? First steps was to really identify some exam development leads. That was really the first step in this process. A very, very extensive job task analysis was completed that involved a group of GMP QA professionals and really looking at and answering the question, what does the GMP QA professional do on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis? And then based upon that job task analysis, a content outline was put together. And actually, you all have access to that, and we'll give you a link for that later on in this deck. And then at the Orlando meeting a few years ago, the annual meeting, the initial process of exam item writing was undertaken. That involved about, gosh, off the top of my head, 6, 7, 8, again, QA GMP professionals writing exam items to meet the items identified in the content outline. And if you've ever been involved in that process, either for the GLP exam or the GCP exam, it's fascinating, quite honestly. There is an entire science behind how to write questions, how to write answers. And Christine D. Pasquale was the one who led that. Extremely, extremely fascinating. And then once those exam items were written, they were reviewed, edited by another group of GMP QA professionals, and eventually selected to fulfill the content outline. And I think, Lydia, correct me if I'm wrong, I think the initial bank of questions, 130, 140, 150, somewhere in that number.
I so just to provide some context, my name is Lydia Brunk. I am the RQAP program manager here at SQA. And Christine, who Steve was mentioning, is one of the folks at Professional Testing Inc., which is a separate company that helps us with that we have a contract with for our exam developments. They are psychometricians who specialize in the science of developing and administering exams. Which is why Steve was saying he learned so much about the science and details behind what makes a good item and how the process of creating and administering an exam goes. All that being said, I know there have to be more than 150 items ready for that first exam. Um, in the bank, the typically for an exam, there are 150 items that are scored and 15 that are unscored, but the candidates do not know the difference between what is scored and unscored. So it's 165 items that you will have to answer.
Okay, that's good. That gives me the end number. I knew it was a lot, and I thought it was somewhere in that 150 range.
Yeah, we started with over 300, Steve, and
Yeah.
then over the process, we got it down to 165. So
Excellent. Excellent. So our upcoming steps, obviously, hey, this exam is ready to be administered. And I know folks on this call are here this morning because they want to jump in and take this exam. They want to be part of this process. So we're looking forward to the first administration of this exam in the fall, and then based upon that initial administration, there will be a passing score study that's completed. There will be further steps done. Each and every item will go through a scientific analysis. They're again looking down the road into the future. More exam items will be written, reviewed, pilot tested. This will be an ongoing process similar to what's occurred in the GLP space and the GCP space. Again, this will be an ongoing, I'll say, platform of excellence, if you will. But again, the first exam will be administered in the fall. Lydia, next slide. So for folks on the call that are interested in sitting for the very first exam, in order to sit for that, you have to have at least 2 years of full-time GMP QA experience and a bachelor's degree, or 4+ years of full-time GMP QA experience. So you will formally submit an application to sit for the exam. That application will be reviewed against the eligibility criteria here. And if it's deemed appropriate for you to sit for the exam, then hopefully that's the case, and you'll get approval to sit for that exam. And that goes through a group within the Council of Professional Registration, just for those folks on the call who are interested in knowing that. So Lydia, next slide. What does that look like? Full-time QA experience. Again, we're all QA professionals on the call. We like details. A little bit of OCD inherent in our DNA. So what does that mean? It means your role is 100% QA focused, or the sum of your QA experience is equal to a full-time role. So if your role is maybe 50% QA, you'd need 4 years in this role with a bachelor's degree, or 8 years if that was a 50%. Ultimately, what the eligibility determination is going to look at is that work experience has to encompass auditing, evaluating, inspecting within the GMP space. Lydia, next slide. So as you begin to think about yourselves, what would not count? So if your experience in GMP, maybe you have experience as let's say a project engineer, as a manufacturing operator where you're dealing with vats and batch production and things like that, or maybe you're in the lab as a QC scientist. Those would not equate to QA experience. Now, why does the Council of Professional Registration put those guardrails in place? Ultimately, the examination is designed to test not only your base knowledge, but really, more importantly, I would say the application of QA principles to practical situations. And as those exam items were put together, really the part of the backbone of putting those items together was not merely knowing the subject matter, but being able to apply that in real life situations. So ultimately, studying the regulations, the guidances without any QA experience is really not going to be enough to be eligible to sit for the exam. Lydia, next slide. So what are the costs to take the exam? A non-member of SQA, that cost is $625. Being an SQA member or being a member of a MOU organization within SQA, that cost is $535. SQA member, is $450. If you are a resident of an outreach country as identified again through SQA. It's $150, and just some additional items there relative to cost. Late fees or non-native English speaking accommodations, those are $50 fees as potential line items. Lydia, anything from your perspective that you want to add to this slide?
Um, Not too much. Just going to add that, so talking about the non-native English speaker accommodation fee, typically what you're going to see is just some extra time or the ability to bring a translation dictionary with you. If And that $50 fee is just for language accommodations for folks who are not native speakers of English. If you have a disability related accommodation, SQA will cover the cost of that. And one other thing quickly about the outreach option, you will need, if you are planning to apply as an outreach applicant, you will need to apply for outreach membership through SQA at least 24 hours in advance of submitting your exam application. If you are not already an outreach member of SQA, there is a one-time $15 fee. It's once in the lifetime of your membership with SQA. So you can continue to renew that outreach membership at no cost. But for the very first time that you become an outreach member, there will be a $15 fee.
Thanks, Lydia. Next slide. The exam delivery options, you really have two possible roads that you could go down to sit for the exam. The first is actually doing it at a testing center. That's the recommended path. And really that's to visit a designated testing center location and take the exam on the computers that are available directly at those testing centers. The second option that was put into place is the OnView option, and that is really a remote examination option. You can do it from your home. You can do it at your office. It's a little bit, I'll say a little bit more risky, if I can say that. There is a higher incident rate of exam termination because that process is live proctor. So somebody's actually watching you take the exam via a webcam setup. There are requirements for the technology that's used, the actual testing space. For those that are maybe thinking about it from, again, taking it in other countries, there are technology laws that are in place. And should a candidate choose this option, there are no dictionary accommodations in the OnView path for non-native English speakers. So again, CPR has again put this process in place, but it is a little bit. I'm going to say it's a little bit challenging, and again, a higher incident rate of exam termination. So again, we do recommend the testing center option if at all possible.
I just want to break in here quickly to offer a little bit of additional context here. Essentially, if you're choosing OnView for convenience, we'd recommend going to a testing center. But if OnView is your only option, we do have people who take the exam via OnView successfully. It is just that you need to have reliable access to the internet. And again, there are quite strict requirements for sort of behavioral and security. For example, when taking the exam via OnView, you are not allowed to leave the view of the camera at any time for any reason, which surprises folks sometimes. For example, there is no option to have a bathroom break during the exam, and it's a long time to sit in front of your computer screen without moving. So, CPR wanted to do everything they could to make the exam accessible to those outside of the exam testing center network, but this is not the perhaps optimal option for taking the exam. And then just one other quick thing that I wanted to add, which is a little bit of a funky thing. Unfortunately, the exam is not available at all within the province of Quebec. That is because Quebec will not let us administer the exam since it's not translated into French. Only exams that are offered bilingually can be administered within the province of Quebec. But anyone who's living there can register to take the exam at a testing center outside of the province if they're willing to travel.
Next slide, please, Lydia. So obviously, how can you prepare? Experience, experience, experience. And that's really key to not certainly the GMP certification exam. It's also true in the GLP space, the GCP space. Ultimately, the requirement of 2 years of experience is critical because again, it's not the exam's not designed, it's not set up to be passed through study alone. We do have as references here, and Lydia, are we sharing this deck with? Are we making this publicly available on the backside of this call?
Absolutely. After this
Okay.
forum, I will send this out directly via email to all the attendees who registered with an email address, and I will also make it publicly available on that candidate resource page. I have also placed some of the links in the chat as we go along.
Perfect. Thank you. The candidate handbook has all the information that you need to know. Again, relative to the content outline, that was something that I talked about in one of the prior slides in terms of in essence what that initial committee came up with in terms of what does the QA professional do in the GMP space on a day-to-day, week-to-week basis. What does that look like? So that content outline is within that candidate handbook. I know some of you on the call are probably interested in essence, what were the regulations, what were the guidances that were used to develop the items versus the content outline. Those are listed in that candidate handbook. But for purposes of this call, just to give you a quick idea, as you might imagine, certainly 210 and 211, the drug product regulations, ICHQ7, drug substance manufacturing, the guidance document from FDA on data integrity, the guidance document on out of spec investigations, Q8, ICHQ8 on pharmaceutical development, ICHQ9 on risk management, ICHQ10 on pharmaceutical quality systems. Those were the 7 or 8, I'll say, foundational documents that were used in the exam writing process. One of the things that is upcoming next month, there is a study group planned to start on Friday, August 14th. Key point on this is not specifically in terms of GMP exam preparation. It is, I'm going to say it's G agnostic because I don't want to say that other term. So it is
agnostic.
That study group is designed and offered to help prepare individuals to sit and take the exam. So there are certain strategies and testing preparation that study group, thanks to on one of the G's, that study group is again going to be offered to folks that are interested not only in sitting for the GMP exam, but also for the GLP or the GCP. So again, we encourage you to attend that if you've never sat for a certification examination, and I think it'll provide really just some good instructional techniques, if you will. Lydia, next slide, please. So what happens when you pass? There will be an RQAP re-registration. So what does that look like? So moving forward, when you pass, 1 hour of education is equivalent to 1 unit. And then other activities are awarded units as described in the SOP. It's again, a Council on Professional Registration SOP, and that's right on the SQA website. And ultimately, for re-registration purposes, that total number of units is 48 units every 3 years. And 24 of those need to be discipline specific. So when you pass the RQAP-GMP exam, and then 3 years down the road, you're looking to re-register, you'll need to have 48 units, but 24 of those will need to be GMP specific. You can certainly re-register without paying for any conferences or training courses. Obviously, that's the probably the most efficient and best way to get your re-registration units. The Council of Professional Registration has done a remarkable job over the course of its tenure in order to define other activities, and we've got a slide coming up on that. It's certainly harder, but it can be done. Lydia, next slide. So what are some of those activities in which you can get those re-registration units? In-house training from your own organization, except for SOP training. Presenting a webinar, a session at an annual meeting, a session at a regional gathering as well. Those are certainly re-registration unit eligible. Attending a webinar, those are really, really great ways to quickly build up some units for re-registration purposes. Serving on an elected committee or a board appointed committee, such as a rapid response team, those are great ways to get re-registration units. Serving on a volunteer committee, serving as a specialty section chair or vice chair, for instance, the GMP specialty section, shameless plug there. Authoring a publication to submit to Quality Matters, joining the mentoring program, again, fantastic service to SQA, reviewing conference abstracts, that is a way to earn re-registration units, and certainly helping with exam development activities down the road, that's another fantastic way. Lydia, next slide. Ultimately, I think a lot of folks who have obtained an RQAP certification, whether it's in the GLP space or the GCP space, now certainly looking at the GMP space. There was a questionnaire that was sent out, I believe, a couple of years ago by CPR, and registrants got back 144 responses were received to that. Basically, is there a benefit to getting this certification? And some really, really great data came back. And I don't think anybody on this call would be surprised. Being hired for or promoted to the job you wanted, 55% rated having the RQAP credential as a 4 or 5, meaning having that credential is extremely helpful to being hired or promoted for a job that you want. Interestingly enough, one respondent noted that senior positions within their own organization required having that credential. 39% of the 144 people who responded indicated that earning a higher salary was extremely helpful if you had an RQAP credential. And a little bit more data, 79% rated the credential, again, as helpful or extremely helpful to forcing, in essence, the registrant to complete continuing education. So in essence, it was that carrot, that self-carrot on the stick to continuing to know more and more about life in the compliance realm. Lydia, next slide. A lot of things we've talked about so far on the call. Lots of the commonly asked questions are addressed on the website. Within the deck here, there are some quick links. That FAQ document is extremely helpful. And I know that recently went through CPR for an update. So a lot of the FAQs have been updated, particularly with regard to, again, the onboarding of this GMP certification. And really any questions that come up through the process, there is a group email that you see there on the screen there. You can send that, send any questions to that email.
And it will
And
come right
Lydia,
to me.
as the program manager of the program, is particularly astute and really is incredible at responding to those questions very, very quickly. For anybody who's sent a question in knows that those questions get answered pretty quickly. So we appreciate that. Next slide, Lydia.
Time for questions now.
Yeah.
If there's anyone on this call who would like to unmute themselves to ask a question or put a question in the chat. Aside from Steve and Ed, who are here presenting all this information, we have some of the members on the Council on Professional Registration to go ahead and answer any questions. I've got one right away. Does study group sessions need a registration? Yes, you do need to register for the study group sessions. It is, like I said, free, so there's no penalty if you think you're going to make it and you can't. But you do need to go to that link and sign up to purchase the free item and then complete the Zoom registration for these study groups. And someone asked, what is the timing of the study group sessions? So the study groups will run for 6 weeks, starting Friday the 14th of August. That first week, the study groups will be at a different time. The first session will be from 11 a.m. to 12 p.m. noon Eastern time, just that first one. And then the remaining five will be from 1 to 2 p.m. Eastern time. Um, all right. So Benazir says, if you were doing QA activities almost full time, but without the title of QA, would that qualify into the 4-year experience requirements? And how do you need to provide proof? So I'm going to leave this up to both our
Yeah.
presenters, and I'm going to pull on some of our members of CPR to help with answering any of these questions.
Dino Franco, Sarah, you guys are on and current sitting members of CPR.
Yes.
You know, from your standpoint and having reviewed applications to sit for exams, you know, share if you can share with us some of your experiences in reviewing and where you know, maybe helping Benazir potentially avoid any questions that come back and forth, because I know that CPR at times can get very involved in ensuring that folks are providing appropriate information.
Yeah. Franco, I can take a stab at this, and you can help me with everything.
Yeah, no
problem. So when we review, we're looking at your job description, we're looking at your years of performance at given jobs. So we're tallying all that up during the review. If we do have questions, or if we need a more proof, we will come back to you and ask for that information. Franco, would you like to add anything?
Yeah,
else?
basically, without the title, we look at what your job description is, like basically detailing out on your CV exactly what you do a day to day. Then we decide if that's sort of QA, because in order to qualify, you need to have a description that indicates that you're doing monitoring, auditing, verifying data against the regulations and against study plans and SOPs. You actually have to be like doing the actual QA job. If you don't have the title of QA, it depends on what you do.
Yeah,
And this is
And
Dawn. I just wanted to add one other piece to that, we did talk about the detailed content outline, and I think Lydia already gave a link to that. And that content outline is for GMP specific, because each discipline has some specifications of what would fall into QA. So I would really, look at that detailed content outline and ask the question, is what I'm doing that I feel is QA actually QA? Because I think there are a lot of operational jobs. I know from a GCP standpoint, even in GLP, GMP, there are operational type roles that have quality, responsibilities in it. We're all responsible for quality, right? But, are you actually doing these things? So, thank you for bringing this up, Lydia. So if you look at the very first section, are you the one that is actually approving and rejecting components? Are you conducting qualifications? Are you conducting audits? Are you training people on SOPs? So I'm just picking out a few here. And please, Steve and Ed, chime in. And the reason we are so picky about this is because if you don't have these experiences, the likelihood of you being successful on the exam is going to be very low. So we want to make sure that you have the right experiences. So take a look at your description, take a look at what's in there. And, we certainly, if at first you don't get approved, you can also appeal the rejection and have a further discussion with the individuals. And it won't be, I'm not going to, I'm not looking at this, Sarah's not looking at this because we're not GMP. So we're not looking at this. You're going to have GMP experts that are going to be looking at this, like Steve and Ed.
exactly.
Yeah.
And specifically, leverage, if you have an SQA mentor in the GMP space, leverage that mentor to go over this exam detail and look for those potential gaps and how you can present those.
Yep.
I see another question which is more about re-registration in the future. Can you elaborate on the in-house training option? What would qualify as an in-house training eligible option to build your points?
A really good example I'll give, and this is kind of in-house, out-house. If you aren't already subscribing to CEDAR's SBIA, who does a countless number of webinars throughout the year, and you scroll to the bottom of the SBIA announcement for the webinar, it will say at the bottom, granting CEU credits for, and there will be the SQA name there. So when you get the certificate from attending that webinar, you can submit that as part of your training. If you have standing GMP training that either you present as a quality professional within your organization throughout the year, or your company has an expert come in and do training. If you do an internal certificate, get that certificate. We all have the EQMSs to give the 50 different certificates for everything. Collect those and submit those as part of your recertification or your continuing certification.
And I just want to add to that, Ed, I think that SBIA is fantastic. But for in-house training, the things that really do not qualify is training on your own SOPs or your own procedures. That general onboarding or continuous training that you're doing, just that's really fully linked into your QMS. But there are lots of other topics that do qualify. So, the annual GMP training is a great example. There might be other laboratory safety training that you're doing as part of your organization. There might be other specific GMP, I can't think of a GMP topic off the top of my head. Ed, you'll have to help me. But a specific thing around, I'll pick on my cell and gene therapy. Specific thing around, preparing, batches for cell therapy that is not just on your SOP, but more general. All of those things can qualify as you being either an instructor or an attendee. So, there are lots of things you can do. It's a little bit harder sometimes to tease that out. And really what we're looking at is that it's not like you're training on SOP 529 on, batch record review. That's not going to qualify, but something, about batch record review that's more general would be okay.
Yeah, completing your read and understood training will get you off your Viva naughty list, but it will not get you units to your RQAP. Sorry, guys.
Root cause analysis techniques, performing effective investigations,
if you have a company come in and do Six Sigma training
correct.
on process improvement and things like that, those are things you can apply as well. Additionally, if you have somebody come in and do CSA training, computer software assurance training, Part 11 training, different types of auditing, things like that, process, absolutely capture those trainings and get documentation of those.
And then I also want to say we, as SQA, we offer tons and tons of free webinars if you are a member.
Yep.
There are just numbers of them. And, for re-registration, a certain portion should be in GMP, but you can go to those other webinars that are GLP, GCP, from Beyond Compliance on kind of general subjects, all of those all can be counted towards your registration. And those are, as long as you're an SQA member, those are free to you. So those are great ways to get those units. And then I'm gonna do a shameless plug, just like Steve did for being on GMP. Volunteer for SQA. There are so many volunteer activities that we have, and any of those activities, or many of those activities, will earn you credits. So there are many, many opportunities to get credits. We try to make this as painless as possible while making sure that you're maintaining your education and skills to keep the credential. So you don't have to take the test twice. That's really the thing. Yeah, so it's my company has a separate department that trains us for Six Sigma and Shinogo principles. Can I use that? Absolutely. 100%.
Just to note, if you do fail to re-register, you can take the exam again to retain the credential. Most people prefer not to do it that way because it's a whole lot more money and hassle and risk, but it is a possibility. It's not as if failing to re-register means you're barred out of the credential forever.
To quote somebody that allowed their GCP to almost lapse and they had to go back and retake the test, their exact quote was, "I'm never doing that again."
Oh, no way.
Wasn't me.
I'm trying to keep my RQAP GLP. I don't want to do the exam again.
Yeah.
Yeah. And it's not that you can't. Lydia's
Yeah.
absolutely right. But I do feel that there's really lots of opportunities. And if you have questions, there's rqa@sqa.com. If there's something that you think I'm not sure, send an email to rqap@sqa.com, and we're happy to get that back to you. Lydia is really good about answering questions. If there's something that needs more of a CPRI on it, we're happy to answer that as well. We think this credential, we're really excited with GMP joining the fold. And we think this credential, obviously, because we're on CPR, we think it's pretty important. And we want to do everything we can do to support people that are interested in attaining and retaining it.
Yeah.
Totally. And no amount of offers of alcohol or food will get Sarah, Steve, or I to tell you what's on the test.
Eh,
No, you do have to sign an agreement when you start writing and reviewing those questions that they are confidential.
Yes.
Take it seriously.
But
yes.
I will say that this is going to be, it's the group that helped put these questions together was absolutely some of the best quality professionals I've had the chance to share a table with or a Zoom with. And they're very thought-provoking. They're action-oriented. And so like was said earlier, other tests you can just read the documents or you can read the literature and probably pass the test. The the way SQA designed this test, it really is testing not only your understanding, but how you apply it in the industry. And we always say GMP is a special environment. This test is specifically around the pharma side of the GMPs. But when it comes to the GMPs, it's not just I know them, it's I've applied them in this scenario. And understanding that becomes very critical.
Are there any other questions from the group before we wrap up? It looks like we've got about 10, 12 more minutes for any uh, further questions or discussions. All right. Well, it looks like we've made it basically to the end of the discussion. Ed, Steve, and any of our council members here today, are there any closing thoughts you want to leave us with as we close out?
I would say again, thanks to everybody for again taking time out of your mornings to sit with us. I couldn't be more excited for this, and wish for those people who are going to end up being eligible to sit for the very first RQA-GMP exam. Best of luck. If you have questions, again, reach out. But we are looking forward to those folks who decide to sit and are eligible. We're looking forward to the announcement that you guys have passed. Really excited about that.
And I just want to say, share it with your friends. I've heard from someone, he might even be on this call, that SQA doesn't always equal GMP. I want to see that change.
Yes.
I think SQA has the opportunities and has some amazing GMP people, some of the best GMP people, maybe even some of the guys on the phone right now that I have had the opportunity to work with and speak with. So, share this with your friends, that are GMP that might be looking for a credential, something that can be very meaningful and help us continue to build the GMP community within SQA because I want to see that continue to grow.
Well, with that, I'll say once again, thank you so much to everyone for attending. As always, as it's been said many times, thank you so much to Ed, to Steve, to all of our CPR members who are here today. We hope to see you applying for the GMP exam if you're eligible. And if you have any questions, I am always an email or a phone call away. And our other folks are just a little step beyond that. Thank you again, everyone, and have a wonderful rest of your morning.
Thanks.
Thanks,
Bye-bye.
guys.
Bye, everyone.
Bye-bye.